Away we go.
Okay.
Welcome, everyone. This is the Coaching Club, and this time around, we are talking about the topic of surrender, which is an interesting one. So excited to jump in and share this with you. If you're live, welcome, welcome. Thanks for joining us. If you're watching the recording, hope you'll have a good experience as well. So I'm going to do something a little different today. As always, these are interactive, right? So along the way, we want to make sure that everybody is has an opportunity to participate and to share thoughts and ideas or ask questions. But I'm going to do something a little different today than I've done in the past, and hope you'll bear with me. But I'm excited to share this with you. So I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach. What I'm going to do is I was thinking about this. And actually, I went back and watched the Thought Coach last week, some of the discussion around that. And as I was thinking about this, it really struck me that a kind of maybe a different fun approach to this would be to um, take it from do a little more background before we actually get right into the topic of surrender. So what I'd like to do is I've got some new tech here that I'm going to try and work with. We'll see how this goes. Uh, so hang on. I'm going to switch cameras here. Can you see that?
The gift in the wound.
There you go. As I was thinking about this topic, I thought, well, there's a lot that I included in this book that I wrote a few years ago that I think would be very helpful for our discussion tonight. So I'm gonna step back a little bit and give you some background and maybe a framework to work with here, and then we can and then we can have a discussion based on those topics. So this book I wrote it about 5 years ago. It really focuses on the the journey that I took in finding the gift in my wounds. And I had a life coach that I was working with at the time, and we worked through a lot of different topics. But I found some really deep keys to what have served me extremely well in my life since then, in understanding the role of pain, the role of emotions, the role and we're going to get to surrender here as we get into this. But there are some really interesting concepts that I wanted to walk you through, and we can talk about them as we go. But it's in various parts of this book, and if you're interested in reading more of the detail, it's out on Amazon, so you're welcome to find that out there. But here's the way I'd like to approach this. I'd like to do it in three parts. First part is I'd like to share a model. It's called the linear versus the consciousness model. And that kind of gives us a framework to think about these things. Then part two, I'd like to talk about the role of emotions and pain, and what the purpose is of those, and the interactions that we have with them, and the meaning that it brings to our discussion. And then part three, I have 3 steps that I want to share with you to finding peace and maturity through these challenges and through surrender, and what the role of surrender is in that. So we are going to get to surrender, but it's going to be towards the end when we talk more about it in detail. And I think it will be really helpful to set the stage with these first parts. Everybody with me on that?
Yes.
Okay, so here's the model. It's a fairly simple model, and I'm just going to write as I go here. So it is for this model, we have a horizontal axis and we have a vertical axis, okay? This axis, the horizontal axis, we call the linear axis, okay? And in the linear world, when we think about the linear world, it is, we look at things like beginning and ending. We think about things that we can measure. We think about things that we can quantify. It's kind of the measurable, observable world that we live in. Okay, makes sense.
Yes.
The so it's we have the laws of physics. If you have things that you can measure, this is time and space. So this is where we spend a good part of our time in our lives in that measurable world. Okay. The vertical axis is called the nonlinear or the consciousness. I'm going to write it here. Okay, one other important thing in here is that on the linear axis, this is also time, so keep that in mind. This is, beginning and end, and we measure time, and it's always moving forward. We're always moving along that axis. Okay. The consciousness axis here is only in the present. Okay. And that's the important thing. It's only in the present. And the consciousness axis is, it can't be measured. It can't be forced or figured out. It's our it's our level of consciousness and what we bring to that moment in time in the present for whatever it is we're experiencing. Okay, makes sense so far?
Yes.
Any questions on that?
So the middle there is always the present.
This is always the present. Yep. This is the past. This is the past. And this is the future. Okay. Consciousness, the consciousness axis is always in the present. Where is it that we can actually do anything? Where on this graph would you put it?
In the present.
Okay, present, exactly. The present is the only place where we can make a decision, where we can act, where we can actually do anything. It's always in the present. If we're looking back into the past or into the future, we really can't act on that. We can't control it because it's either already passed or it hasn't gotten here yet. So the consciousness axis is where we actually can act and where we can do things. Okay, you with me so far?
Yes.
So here's the important part for our discussion. So when I'm going to start by telling you a little story. Actually, two stories. So when I first started working through my issues a number of years ago with this coach, um, he asked me to kind of tell him what was going on, and so I started into. I was in a really dark place at the time, frankly. So I started going into how bad everything was, and who had done this to me, and who had done that to me, and why things were so awful, and that kind of thing. And I went on for a while, and we kind of talked, and then I came back the next time, started into the same kind of thing, and he said, "Whoa, whoa, 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 stop." And I said, "What?" He said, "Mark, you're stuck in the story." And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "This is the same thing you told me last week, number one. Number two, there's nothing you can do about it. It's past. It's done. And so right now it's just a story. You're stuck in the story and you keep telling the same story over and over again. You're telling me here, you're telling me about it now, but it's something that happened back here, and there's nothing you can do about it. Other than, other than if something happens, so let's say, I'm just going to say something awful happened here, okay? The only thing we can do now in the present is we can have a consciousness level and an idea about how we perceive that, what it means to us, what the meaning is. So I'm gonna put down here, we have a consciousness level that puts meaning onto that. Okay. This consciousness measure is there's actually no right or wrong to it. There's just lower consciousness and higher consciousness. Higher is better than lower, but consciousness is a good thing. So when something happens to us in the present, we put a meaning on what that is and what it signifies to us. Okay? You with me so far?
Yes.
Yeah.
Depending on our level of consciousness is what the meaning that we assign to that. Okay, so that's something that happened in the past. Here's another story. So later on in my experience, I was talking to him about, oh, I really want to get all this done. I want to make this happen because I've got to get on with my life and I got to get on with my career. And if I don't get this done, then bad things are going to happen and financially and blah, blah, blah. And he stopped me again and he goes, "Mark, you really like to horribilize the future, don't you?" I said, "What do you mean horribilize the future?" And he said, "You're telling me all the awful things." So I was projecting out here all the awful things that could happen. And with my level of consciousness at the time, I was looking at it as if those were actually going to happen. And I said, "Well, I'm just trying to be reasonable and realistic about what I think is happening." And he said, "Well, okay, but isn't it also possible that what happens out here could be 10 times better than you possibly could imagine?" And I said, "Yeah, well, I guess so." So I was projecting my level of consciousness onto that future event without any ability to make any kind of an impact on it in the present. Okay. Any questions, any thoughts, comments on that?
I kind of did this with a lady on an airplane once.
You did.
Yeah, she said, every time I hit turbulence like what we're having right now, I freak out.
Oh, yeah.
And then I talk to her about, you don't know what's going to happen in the next 5 minutes. Like, how do you know the plane's going to go crashing down? So
Yeah.
then she realized that at the moment we were in a safe place.
So usually the kinds of emotions that you see coming out here when people are horribilizing the future, Janae, to your point, this is usually fear, right?
Yes.
That's usually what drives that. When we are stuck in the story in the past, it's usually we're usually angry or hurt, or we are envious, or we are vindictive. That's usually the kind of stuff that's going on if we're stuck in the story in the past. And those are never good, right? Those are those are negative things that are going to take us down. And so, and I'm going to tell you, I'm going to come back to this and tell you another example of this, but I wanted to lay the framework here. So put a bookmark in that, and we're going to come back to this, and we'll talk about exactly what how this plays into it. Okay. All right. Let's go to part 2 here. Let's talk about pain and emotions. So very simply, what is the purpose of pain?
Oh, pain is to tell us to do something different.
Okay.
Like when you put your hand on a hot stove and it hurts, you know to take your hand off.
Right. Okay. All right.
Oh, also, it teaches us to learn something.
Okay.
Eric was going to say something.
Is that going to be, that includes emotional pain as well, correct?
Any kind of pain. Yep. Yep.
Okay.
It keeps
So
us
you got
safe.
I'm
so you
sorry.
got different choices with emotional pain, or you're not going to get rid of it, or it's going to be, you're going to either activate it to go higher or something. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm just going by past experience.
Yeah. Now say that again so that if you what?
You could take that emotional pain and you can either make it more intense, or you can help reducing it by uh, I don't know. I just lost the thought. But you can make it worse, or you can make it better depending on your emotions and your idea. Correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Michael, did you have a comment?
Oh, I was going to say pain can keep us safe in the
Yeah.
moment or in the future.
Yep, it can. So pain's main job, pain is a messenger.
I don't like that messenger.
And pain's job is to let us know that something is wrong, okay? Like Janae said, if your hand's on the stove, pain's job is to tell you, hey, something's wrong, you need to fix it, okay? Pain is a messenger, and it always, and especially with emotional pain, its job is to let us know that something is wrong. Curtis was talking last week about talking about with surrender. If you resist, if you push it away, right, then it actually makes it worse than if you lean into it and accept it. So what happens a lot of times with pain is it's uncomfortable. Nobody likes to have pain, but The problem is if we kill the messenger, then we have missed the opportunity to address something that the pain is raising to our awareness so that we can deal with it. Make sense? So if I tell my hand, the pain in my hand, well, that's stupid, I don't want to deal with you, and I just leave it on the stove, that's going to be a problem, right? With pain, emotional pain, we don't like to deal with emotional pain. It's so hard to deal with. It's really harsh. But the fact is that pain is a messenger, and it's alerting us to there's something in your subconscious that whatever just happened, it has raised it to your awareness. And now I call this the golden opportunity. This is the golden chance that we all have to identify something that is causing us problems or emotional upset or challenges or pain. And we have an opportunity to do something about it in the present. We can actually do something about it. Okay? Let's talk about emotions real quickly. What are your thoughts on emotions? What is the purpose of emotions?
Well, I think emotions are messengers too.
Mm-hmm.
That
Yeah,
when you're angry, that means something has to change.
exactly.
So,
Emotions are, go ahead.
so if you keep your emotions in check, uh, then you're not really being safe. You're just ignoring the problem.
Correct. Yeah, it's just like killing the messenger, the pain messenger, right? Emotions are messengers that give us feedback and give us information about what's happening in our environment, particularly with our relationships. And so if we say, well, good emotions, bad emotions, there's actually, all emotions are good from the standpoint that they are relaying messages to us, right? They're informing us about what's happening with our relationships and with how we're perceiving those relationships. So there are dark emotions and there are light emotions. There's, depressive kind of emotions and there are joyful kind of emotions, but all emotions are messengers as well. And so the challenge with pain and emotions is that we often put judgment on it. We say, oh, well, those are bad, or I don't want to deal with the pain. And so we push them away, like you said, Eric, and we lose the opportunity to understand what it is that the emotions or the pain is trying to tell us. Okay? You may have heard people talk about, well, you need to lean into the pain. You need to accept the pain, right? It sounds very counterintuitive, but that's actually taking a more mature viewpoint and saying, well, this pain is a messenger, is trying to tell me something. So I'm gonna find out what that message is. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit more here in just a second. Okay. So any other comments on pain and emotions? I just wanted to set the stage on that, so that we can understand exactly what the purpose and the role of pain and emotions is.
I
Okay.
just want to say that it's very timely. I've been having a painful emotion.
Well, good. Maybe this will give you some other tools to think about how to deal with that. Okay, let's go to part 3. And here I'd like to share what I call 3 steps to peace and maturity. And it also includes the role of the role of surrender in that. So let me get my paper out here. And we're going to tie all these things together as I go through this, okay? So those weren't just random random thoughts out there, but you'll see how they all tie together. So step one is move to the present. Okay. On that continuum, we want to get out of the past, we want to get out of the stories, and we want to get out of horribilizing the future, and we want to get to the present, and we want to stay in the present. What are some of the ways that you people use to stay present, to be mindful, or to stay present? Any things that you found helpful?
Yes, in hypnosis school, they taught us to concentrate on what's real.
Okay.
The feeling of your body sitting in the chair, looking at your hand, because your hand is real. It's not in your imagination.
Okay.
Thinking of your spirit as residing in the front of your head rather than in the back.
I hadn't heard that before. That's interesting. Okay. Thinking about what's real. That's great. Good tips. Anybody else? Okay. Some of the things that those are great, Janae. Thanks for sharing those. Some of the other things that I found useful are meditation, and just breath work, breathing. And Janae, that goes to your to your point, and what the meditation experts say is that the reason that we use breath is because breath is present, right? We don't breathe, we die. And so it's something that's always present. And if we bring ourselves present, then that's something we can focus on that's happening in our bodies every minute. The other interesting thing about breath is that when the research shows that after you've taken 4 to 6 deep breaths, it actually engages the parasympathetic nervous system, which is more deeply connected to the subconscious, and it actually shifts. And so there is a physiological as well as an emotional component to it that actually shifts and allows you to be more connected with the present emotions and the present things that are going on in your psyche and in your spirit than if you're only in the sympathetic nervous system. So that's an interesting thing too. So whatever works for you. Have any of you tried the box breathing method of breath control?
Yes,
That's
people that all the time.
yeah, that's a really good one where it's like a box. So you breathe in for 6 counts, hold it for 6, breathe out for 6 counts, and then what's the last one?
Hold
You're
again
breathing
without air.
Yeah,
and then you're holding it. You're
holding it
holding it,
without air. Yeah, right.
and then
Yep,
you're breathing out, and then you're holding it. That's the
right.
box.
Yeah. So that's another good way of focusing our minds. Okay, so that's the first step to make sure that we're in that present, we're on that consciousness part of the graph. Got it?
Yes.
Okay. Part 2. We're going to go back to pain and emotions. And I'm going to suggest that you make friends with them. It sounds weird. I know it sounds really weird, but pain and emotions are the messengers that are doing their best to deliver a message to us. And so we have the opportunity, rather than killing the messenger, we have an opportunity to actually make friends with the pain and find out what the message is that it's trying to deliver to us, or the emotion. I'm going to read out of this book. There was a really interesting encounter that my coach had with a lady. Here's briefly what he said. Recently, I was talking to a young woman who had been in the traditional medical psychotherapy model of healing for years. What's your diagnosis? I asked. They diagnosed me as bipolar, borderline personality disorder, and a couple of other things, she replied. How are they treating those disorders? With meds. How many medications are you on? I asked. Currently about 7 different meds, she said. I asked, do your doctors think that's the best plan? Yes, they tell me I can't come off them, she replied. And do you think that's the best plan for you? I asked. Do they make the quality of your life better? No, she answered emphatically. I asked, you've been in this misery, this psychological suffering for how many years? As long as I can remember, she replied. Has anyone asked you the source of your pain? Was it an event, a process of invalidation? I don't remember asking anyone ever asking me those questions, she responded. So I asked her, has anybody ever asked you to see the purpose of your pain? Has anyone ever asked you to make friends with it and to see what it is trying to tell you about your level of consciousness about yourself and the way you see the world? That's stupid. Why would I want the pain? It's not that you want the pain, it's that your pain is there for a purpose, and you need to understand that purpose. It's telling you something about the nature of your life. It may be telling you that you really are worth something. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard, she retorted. Well, needless to say, he didn't make much headway with her because she was unwilling to see pain as the messenger that it was. So this is where I said, if you lean into the pain, if you make friends with the pain, and this is the really weird thing. I've actually had experiences with this where, so like if I'm working through something that's really painful and emotionally I'm just really struggling with it. And so if I can back up and say, okay, this is the messenger, I'm going to have a conversation with the messenger and not try to kill the messenger and just find out what's going on here. So you can literally say, okay, pain, you got my attention. What is it that you're trying to tell me? Number one, you can actually ask, you can actually say, so what is your name? What is this about? And often it's very interesting thing. If you're in that zone, if you're in that consciousness level, you'll actually be able to have this conversation. The pain may actually tell you what the experience was, or it will actually have a name that it will give you of what this is all about. And sometimes, because these are deeply emotional, sometimes it's a little rough, sometimes it's a little jarring, but it's actually there. And then you can say, okay, well, what do you have to tell me? You got my attention. And then, you can literally, it's a sensory kind of experience, but you can literally have an insight and a communication about to your subconscious and to your spirit about what it is that is all about. It may, and then you'll have that piece of information. You can consider it. You can say, okay, I get it. That's something I need to act on. Or you can say, I get it. That has been painful for all these years, but I'm moving on. I'm past that. And I don't need to consider this anymore. Thank you for delivering your message. And that will actually resolve, in many cases, that will resolve that issue, and the pain will actually go away. What the psychologists tell us is that if that pain comes up and we do things to push it away, to medicate it with food, or in our area, chocolate, or whatever it is, to try to forget about it, if we try to escape it, if we go into the past and we get out of the present and we say, yeah, but she shouldn't have said that, and why did she? And if she wouldn't have, or if he wouldn't have, then I wouldn't be here. Then we've left the present and we've gone back into being stuck in the story, rather than actually just listening to what the message is that the pain has for us. Once the pain has delivered its message, or the emotion, then it releases. And that is the cool thing. And that's what I really want to make sure that we understand, is that once it has delivered its message, it actually releases. If we push it away and if we get rid of it, then it just bubbles back down into the subconscious where it came from, and it's going to come up again. And it'll keep coming up again and again until it has delivered its message. And because it's trying to keep us safe, that's what the subconscious is trying to do. And so we have this golden opportunity, and it's difficult. It is so hard, but it is actually, this is where the surrender comes in. It's like, okay, I am going to surrender all of my biases, my stories, my horribilizing, my, all of those kinds of things. I am going to surrender to the fact that this is a real thing, that I have this golden opportunity to deal with. And I'm going to take advantage of it and find out what's going on here. Thoughts on that?
I can't wait to report.
Okay. Part 3 is I call it let intuition flow. This is when you're in that zone, when you're in the consciousness zone, this is not where you figure things out. This is not where you try to fix things. This is where you have the opportunity to, and this is the other part of surrender, you actually have the opportunity to, once you've had the message delivered, then you have the opportunity, let's see, Jeanette, let Jeanette back in here. You have the opportunity to have intuition and inspiration come to you that you otherwise wouldn't have. So I'm going to go back here, back to our model here. And this is where that can happen. And this is the other really cool thing. So when you're in the zone, and when you have accepted the messengers as messengers and not put judgments on them that they're bad and bad pain and bad emotions or whatever, but just, okay, I am going to accept it. I'm going to lean into it, and I'm going to find out what the message is and what's going on here. Then, rather than if I get the message here, and then I say, oh, well, now I get what's going on. I'm going to go back and I'm going to yell at him and I'm going to fix him or whatever. If we try to fix it, then we've actually jettisoned ourselves out of here and we're back here. Or I'm never going to do that again. I'm never going to go to another family party because I don't want to be around him, you know. Then we've thrown ourselves into the fear of the future, and we've missed the opportunity to listen. And I'm going to put listen to intuition. Okay. And you will find, because our bodies, our spirits know how to heal themselves. I come from a medical family. My dad was a doctor. I have brothers-in-law who are doctors. I know a lot of doctors. And if you get them privately, a good doctor will tell you, I don't cure people. I help the body get into a place where it does its own natural healing. The body heals itself. That's the way our bodies are made. A good psychiatrist will tell you the same thing. I don't cure people. I help people to find those answers and find that intuition and that inspiration within them to heal themselves. This is where that magic happens, and that is the exciting thing. And that's why it's so important for this surrender to happen, and where we can actually see that kind of thing happen. So I'm going to try and tie this all together with an actual example from my experience. So a number of years ago, I'm an author. I've written a number of books, and one of the early books that I wrote was I co-authored in a joint authorship with a gentleman that I had met who was in the executive coaching kind of space. And we had an opportunity to write a really, really cool book. And so we worked together. We partnered for about 2 years, actually. We worked on this book. It was a major, major project. And it was looking really great. We were both really excited. We got to within, and we had gone through all of the editing and content and design and all the legal stuff and everything. And we were literally 2 weeks away from launching the book. And he sent me an email and said, you are trying to steal my book and I won't have it. And I'm cutting you out, and I don't ever want to see you again. And behind the scenes, he had arranged everything so that he ended up with all the intellectual property. He ended up with everything. And I was left with nothing. And I went all the legal routes. I tried to make it, fix it, but there's just nothing I could do. So I lost 2 years of my life. It really derailed my career. It put me in a really dark place. And this is where I was. It was an awful place. And that was painful. And it was real. It actually happened to me. He really did that to me. For months, every time I thought about him or about that or about, my current awful situation in life, I would get so angry, I would get vindictive, I would think of all the things that, I did it in good faith, I worked with him, I gave my heart and soul to this, and look what he did, he stabbed me in the back. And it was absolutely tearing me up. It was destroying my life. This is what happened. It happened on this linear measure, and this was my perception of that incident. This was my level of consciousness at the time. And my level of consciousness was that he was dishonest, that he was um, a horrible person, that he was a thief, that he was, all of these things. That was the meaning that I put on that experience. Like I said, it was tearing me up for months. And I remember very distinctly sitting there one day thinking about it and dealing with those issues. But I remember thinking, well, you've been taught all your life that you're supposed to forgive people, right? And I said to myself, this is all, all going on in my head. And I'm like, yeah, but, this is different. This guy, I am not at fault here. And this guy, it's all his fault. And so I wrestled with that for a while. And I was at that pain point where the pain was telling me, you got an opportunity here to do something different. And so I said, okay, all right, I am just going to give into this. I am going to tell me what I need to do here. And it was like, it's still so deeply impactful for me. This is what happened on that occasion. And it was like crystal clear. It came to me, he is more deeply wounded than you are. And I thought, what? He is more deeply wounded than you are. And so I started thinking about that and looking at all of his actions and the hurtful things that he had done. And it was like the light bulbs went on. Oh my gosh, he is more wounded. He is dealing with deeper emotional and psychological issues than I ever imagined, and that I'm dealing with. So what happened in that moment was, this didn't change. He had still done those things to me. It has still been incredibly painful and disruptive to my life. But what happened was, my consciousness shifted up here. I had a higher level of consciousness. I had a more mature and a more real and a more truthful way of seeing that, and the meaning that I had been putting on it. I now realized at a higher level of consciousness that this really wasn't true. The truth was that he was more wounded and dealing with deeper issues than I had imagined. That never would have happened if I wouldn't have taken the opportunity to stay in the present, to listen to the pain, and then to surrender to it and just say, okay, I'm open. What is the insight that I have available to me? And it was transformative. And so when we say, some people say, well, just forgive and forget. Well, that that is staying stuck here. And that's why a lot of people say, well, I just feel like I'm in quicksand. This is never changing. I know I'm supposed to forgive. I try to forget it. I try to put it behind. But actually what that is doing is just pushing the messenger out of the picture. And it's pushing yourself back out of the present, and it's pushing yourself out of this opportunity for inspiration and intuition to give you a more mature, a higher consciousness insight into how you can deal with that. And so there is that thing where, yeah, we do need to be forgiving, but we need to utilize that as an opportunity to understand the pain and the message that it has for us. So that's hopefully ties all of those concepts together in a way that you can see how surrender works here. But it's an important part of this, but you have to have these other pieces and understand what's going on in your subconscious to really be able to move, when you move from here to a higher level of understanding and consciousness about something that's happened. Same thing with if you're horribilizing the future, if you can move to a higher level of understanding and consciousness about what the realities of those things are. Like you said, Janae, well, how many times does a plane fall out of the sky, really, So you're looking at it from a higher level of consciousness and of maturity than if you're stuck in the story down here. So, thoughts? Oh, you're muted, Janae.
If no one else is going, I want to talk.
Okay, go.
So Eric is my witness. He's going to tell you. Before this class, I told him I have something really dark and scary to tell you, and I feel really bad. And he said, okay, I'll listen. But guess what? After your class, I feel much better.
Oh, good. Good. Glad to hear that. Wonderful.
She got a gorgeous smile on her face that I haven't seen in quite a while either, so that's good.
She's a beautiful lady, inside and out.
Absolutely.
I'll pay you later.
Okay. Janae, I just have to tell you, I sense a brightness in your spirit that is beautiful.
Thank you.
Really lovely. Any other thoughts or comments? I'm gonna see if I can get myself back on here so you're not talking to the sheet. There we go. Anybody else have a thought before we part? All right. Well, thank you for joining, and hopefully that was helpful. And it really, I'm really grateful that I had this opportunity because it gave me a chance to go back and review some of these concepts. And, it's a constant, we never 100% master these things. And so it's always good to go back and go, oh yeah, that's what I'm working on here. Or that's how it operates. And I hopefully these 3 steps, I like to, again, psychologists tell us that if you have 3s of things, our minds can remember 3s, right? If we get beyond 3, then it starts to go, what was number 4? I can't remember number 7. That's too many things. Blah. But so that's why I really wanted to try to boil it down to something that's simple and that we can practice. So anyway, there you go. Thank you for joining tonight, and we'll see you in the future.
Thanks for being
Thank
awesome.
you.
Okay,
Appreciate your
thank
time.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks.